Alien Romulus, is it a sour, overly referential mess with no personality of its own? Let's talk about it. I never actually intended to do movie reviews on this channel. It's something that I've thought about in the past, but never really wanted to sort of, dip my sort of toes into that kind of water. But I went and seen Alien Romulus last night, hence this video, and I felt so passionately about it, and I really wanted to share my thoughts. So here we are. I'm making my first ever movie review. If this is a terrible video and it bombs, that's absolutely fine. But if it's successful and I end up doing more, then that's also fine by me. But yeah, as I mentioned, last night I went and saw Alien Romulus. Right off the bat, and I just want to preface this as well. This is going to be a spoiler-free review. I will do a spoiler review, but yeah, I want to basically just keep this as clean as possible and as succinct as possible and just share my thoughts and opinions on the movie. But I have been seeing some very, very good reviews online and people building up the hype and saying it's the best thing since Aliens or Prometheus, whatever you may think of that. I don't honestly believe it deserves the hype that it's been getting. I think it's a good film, but I don't think it's as good as people are making out. I'm really torn. Thinking about this film because on the one hand, I'm a lifelong Aliens fan. I'm massive fan of the Alien franchise, and the movies. And to be fair, some of the movies are absolutely terrible, but some of them are absolutely fantastic. And it hurts because this film has some absolute golden moments, but it also has some things that, quite frankly, suck. And it hurts saying that as an Alien fan. So this film is a bit 50-50 for me, really, and I'm quite torn. But I think that the reason why it's been getting so much, love and support and hype online is because I think it's kind of the sort of comparison piece. Like, obviously, as I mentioned, the Alien franchise and the sort of films and movies that we've been getting haven't been that great, and I think that this, in comparison to those, is a masterpiece, and I think that's what's really driving that. This is just my opinion, but that's what I think is driving the hype. But I won't linger anymore. I'll get straight into what I did like about the movie, and then we'll move on to what I actually don't really like about the movie, and then I'll give an overall score at the end. But right off the bat, it's a good Alien film. It's a good Alien film. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's a pretty decent film. I enjoyed it. There's a couple moments where it could have ended, but they carried it on. I'll get onto that in a bit because I'm not really a huge fan of the reasons that they gave to extend the runtime. It's just shy of 2 hours, I believe. In terms of the sort of visuals, the movie looks fantastic. The tone, the atmosphere, and the visuals are fantastic, and I think Fede, forgive me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but Fede Alvarez has done a phenomenal job, and you can really see his sort of horror chops on full display here in the film. Looks great. And to say that, I think it was 90% practical effects. I don't know if that's true. Don't get me wrong, there are an awful lot of practical effects in this, so 90% feels about right, but I'm not sure whether it's on the money. There's a lot of CGI. The CGI looks great, with one glaring exception, and I can't go into it in this video, but there is one huge glaring exception to the CGI looking great, and it's terrible. Like, it's terrible, and it takes you completely out of the film. Other than that, as I mentioned, atmosphere, tone, visuals, fantastic. Really hooked me. I was in, basically, up until that poor CGI moment. Some cool deaths. Again, no spoilers, but there are some cool deaths. There's a lot of creativity in this film, which I really, really appreciated. So there's a lot of environmental hazards, more than there are in the usual sort of entry into the franchise. So I really actually quite appreciate that. It's in the trailer, for example. You can see in the zero gravity, she's the main character, Rain. She's sort of floating through zero gravity, and she's avoiding some xenomorph acidic blood, which was fantastic. I thought it was really creative, so I really, really liked that. There's hints to more of Giger's work, which I really actually enjoyed. Again, I can't go into it in this because I don't want to spoil it for you, but yeah, there's more of Giger inspired work in this, and I really appreciate it. Actually, I thought it was a good addition to the franchise and a good addition to the sort of xenomorph lore and the morphology of the creature and the species. Facehuggers are a menace in this. It's in the trailer. You saw that, obviously, if you've seen the trailer, you can see loads of facehuggers bursting through a door. They're an absolute menace for the first, I would probably say, around about half of this film, once the action kicks off. And I actually really quite appreciate facehuggers being given a little bit more love in the film. So loved that. Thought that was really good. Acting was great. David Johnson, I believe his name was. He plays the I don't know if I want to say it, is it classed as a spoiler? I'm not going to say it just in case, but anyway, David Johnson, one of the actors in the film, fantastic job. I thought the acting's great, really really good. If when you see the film, you'll understand what I mean. But his character, has some nuances to it that I'll say, and I thought his acting was great. And the acting's good from it's a younger cast, which obviously I definitely know that it's raised some eyebrows, the fact that it's a younger cast, but I think they all did great, and I think it was a really good cast. In my opinion, there should have been a few more members. I thought it was quite a sort of tight, neat cast. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't really take away from the quality. I thought it was really good. As I mentioned, the tone atmosphere is great, and it's just this is the thing, right? So I'll go on to talking about the bad bits in a minute, but the film from start to about just about the third act ish. It's hard to explain without really giving any spoilers, but basically there is a point, and when you see the film, you'll know exactly what I mean. But there is a point where it should have ended. The film from start to that point is good. It's a good film. It's the ending that killed it for me, if I'm completely honest. And I'll explain in my spoiler version. But let's move on to the bad, the stuff that not necessarily bad, but the stuff that I didn't really enjoy as much. But essentially, this film has no personality of its own, and I know that that's such a bold statement to come out with right off the block, talking about sort of the negatives. But the film is a amalgamation of nothing but non-stop references. It references Prometheus, it references Alien Covenant, it references the original Alien film, Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection. It references them all, and it's non-stop. It's a non-stop barrage of references, and to the point where some of them are really, really on the nose. Some of them are subtle, to be fair. There's one scene in particular that is at the bottom of an elevator shaft. That's all I'll say. For those of you that have seen it, you should know what I'm on about, but one of the characters sort of sees it on the floor. I'm going to be very vague here, so apologies for that. But he sees it on the floor and he sort of puts his hand in it, and it's a reference to the original Alien film. And I didn't really like it. It was a subtle reference, but it didn't do anything. It didn't mean anything. It was just there for being. It was there for reference sake. There's some dialogue in the film that's pretty much direct rips from previous films, which technically speaking, in the canon, in the storyline would make them the first utterances of these quotes, which I hate. I'm going to be completely honest. I really don't like it. There's one quote in particular that is said, and again, for those of you that have seen it, it's at the bottom of the elevator shaft. You will know exactly what I mean. I probably didn't even need to say that for you to know exactly which quote I'm on about. And it was terrible, absolutely terrible. It was so cringe-inducingly bad and embarrassing. And then referring back to what I said earlier about that one glaringly terrible CGI mistake, in my opinion, is what it was. It's a reference at the same time, and there's a lot of it in the movie, and it's horrendous. Very, very, very sour, poor taste, in my opinion. So there's not really. It's an alien film, and obviously you go to the theater, the cinema, to see xenomorphs. In my opinion, there could have been more. I mean, that's a pretty small nitpick. There's no real explanations as to sort of why why the station is there in the first place. I don't really want to get into spoiler territory, but yeah, things happen in the film and there's no real explanation for it. There's no character development at all. One of the characters, the younger male character, I forget his name, I think it's Bjorn. He is the only character, and he's a side character, and he's the only character that you really ever get any sort of backstory on. That's it. There is no character development whatsoever for any of the characters in this film, and it's pretty poor. It's pretty poor. Now, I get that it's a horror film. I'll get onto that. I get that it's a horror film, and that you need cannon fodder for the monsters, but still, I expected at least some character development, especially for the main characters and the characters that go on to survive. It's poor. It's really poor. So not great. The dialogue's decent. It's decent in most scenes, and there are a few scenes where the dialogue's pretty poor. Then we come down to sort of like the story issues. The story, like you could pick the story apart. It's an alien film, and to be fair, this seems to be a bit of a trend in Hollywood at the minute. Most of the stories, the writers aren't that great. So you could pick apart the story all you want. The tense scenes, again. This is Fede Alvarez. He did. I Don't Speak. I think it was called Don't Speak. He did Evil Dead. He's a horror sort of aficionado, and he loves doing horror films. This film was not scary at all. Like this film was not scary. There was one scene in particular that actually was tense to me. The rest of it, because I didn't care about the characters, because there was no character development. I didn't care who lived and who died. Really, just didn't care. All of the deaths had zero impact on me. It was more about the cool factor, about how they died, that was more impressive to me, and that's really what I cared about. Other than that, yeah, the film's not scary. People have been going on online and saying that it's the most gory body horror, scary aliens film in the franchise, and it's been the scariest film this year and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know who's watching the film and writing these reviews, but the film is not scary, and the film is not gory. I want to stress that because this is an alien film and everyone's been going on about body horror. This film is not gory. There are moments of gore, don't get me wrong, it is an alien film, but it's not gory at all. Like the previous entries have been significantly more gory than this one, in my opinion. Um, there was some brutal deaths. Don't get me wrong, but they're not gory. Um, or another thing as well is how do I put this without spoiling it? I feel like I feel like Scott Ridley has really been overbearing on the narrative of this one. It feels like because he never got to do the third Prometheus film or the third film in the Prometheus trilogy, it feels like he's just sort of poured himself all over this, and in my opinion, it's ruined the film. It ruined the film. When I said it should have ended to avoid that. So it's not great. And this is a controversial opinion. I think Prometheus is a good film, technically speaking, and if it was a standalone film outside of the Alien franchise, yeah, great film. But what it did lore wise, and then obviously following on to Alien Covenant, what it did lore wise to the Alien franchise, in my opinion, completely ruined it. And as long as Scott Ridley has any creative control over the direction of the Alien franchise, he's just going to continue to ruin it. And I know that's such a controversial take, and I know that a lot of people aren't going to agree with me. There are going to be people that do, but there's going to be people that don't. If you enjoyed what Scott Ridley's brought to the Alien franchise, that's fantastic, and I'm really happy for you. Me personally, I don't. I absolutely hated what Alien Covenant did. Having David be the progenitor of the xenomorph species is just plain terrible writing, in my opinion. It's a really bad choice. The reason why I really liked the xenomorph species in the first place was because it was kind of this like horror from deep space that was enigmatic, and no one really knew where it came from or why it existed or what its connection was to the space jockey in the first Alien film, and it should have stayed that way. It just plainly should have stayed that way. Or if they really had to, come up with some, excuse as to why they exist or where they came from, or create some origin story, I would have preferred it be a little bit more creative and imaginative than being created by some defunct robot. Like it was very poor. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Um, Another thing that I really don't like about this film is the pacing. Now, it felt quite well. I wouldn't say it felt slow, but not a lot happened in the first half an hour, 40 minutes. It wasn't paced bad. Like I was there for it, and it was the world building was good, and sort of I really enjoyed that, and sort of the exploration of the Weyland-Yutani Corporation and their interaction with normal people. I really enjoyed that. Um, but then as soon as the action kicked off, it was fast. It was beat after beat after beat after beat after beat, and I didn't enjoy it. Some of the film, and again I'll go into this in a spoiler version, but some of the film suffered because of it. So not a huge fan of the pacing. And again, back to the references. It felt like characters made stupid decisions just so they could reference something that's happened in previous films. Again, I'll get onto that in the spoiler version. And it really, really harms the story, in my opinion. And then, sort of, the last thing that I want to say, because I completely understand that I am being pretty overly critical here, but I'm disappointed essentially. And then the last thing is that everything was in the trailer. All of the best moments, most of the best moments were in the trailer. Like, and I hate that. That's not just a problem with this film. That's a problem with modern cinema in general. It like stop putting all the best bits in the trailers just to make me go and see the film. If I'm interested enough and you've done a good enough job of teasing the film, I should want to go see it anyway. This is an aliens film. You're going to get people through the door regardless. So why are you putting all of the best bits in the trailer? It's nonsensical to me, and I hate it. I hate it. And And then character relationships as well. And again, this ties back to the sort of narrative. It's implied that characters have relations with different ones, but then it doesn't really go anywhere. And who really cares? I don't really care about any of the characters. I watched the entire film start to end and didn't care about a single character. Which, yeah, poor. It is a horror film, but it's poor. I think that's about it. I've got a list in front of me. That's what I've been reading, but I don't really want to go over any of the other points because they sort of get into spoiler territory. But overall, I know I've lambasted the hell out of this film, but lambasted, I don't think that's the right use of that word, but whatever. I know I've been overly critical with the film. It is a decent film, and I do recommend going to see it if you are a fan, especially if you're sort of not a fan of the Alien. I think this is a good stepping point into the Alien franchise. There's enough action, there's enough horror, there's enough xenomorph action. Not not in my opinion. There could have been more, but there is enough for it to be classed as an Alien film, and yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a good film. Scoring wise, I give it a 6.5 out of 10. Now the main reason I'm dropping it, that seems quite harsh, is because one, in my opinion, as I've just alluded to, there's not enough xenomorphs in this Alien film. They focus too much on the references, way too many references. They focus too much on the creativity. Now, I did say that was a plus, and it is for the most part, but I feel like because they were trying so hard to be creative that it kind of took away from other elements of the film. And then also, the Scott Ridleyism. I almost, on my intro to this video, I almost called it Alien Ridleyus. That would have been terrible, but yeah, it's got a lot of his elements. You can tell it's got a lot of his elements in this film, and it's poor. I don't like it. But again, that's just my opinion. But yeah, 6.5 out of 10. Had it not had the ending that it did, and again, no spoilers, if the ending that it has, if they'd removed that and ended it where it should have ended, I'll bump that up to a 7 comfortably. Maybe even a 7.5. But yeah, it is what it is. It's a decent film. I think I am being a little bit too harsh, but I think that we need that now. Too many people are more than happy just to sort of, ride the hype and ride the joy and compare it to previous works, and it's all about the member berries and nostalgia, and I hate it. I think that we should base a film on the merits, rank a film on its merits as a separate entity, and that's what I've tried to do here. And again, it's an okay film. I do recommend going to see it if you are a fan. But that's pretty much it. I don't want to rant anymore. I don't want to ramble anymore. I feel like I've talked forever. If you like this, please give me a like and stay tuned for the spoiler review that will be coming up very, very soon. It's probably already out. But no, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.